Why did Vader's opinion on the clone troopers change drastically after Order 66? Greetings Acolytes and welcome to the Archives. The clone troopers were a massive part of Anakin Skywalker's life. Being in charge of the 501st Legion, Skywalker led Rex and the boys in some of the most decisive victories in the war. Even if most of the war was just a stage, a lot of the battles did matter, and were won honestly by Anakin's ingenuity working alongside the troopers who had become his friends, and Anakin's sheer will to win, something that he shared with the clones. However, when Order 66 occurred, everything would change, and the camaraderie that he had once had with his soldiers was now gone. Vader cared nothing for their lives, and if he didn't send them out to die on the front lines of battle, he would kill them himself for one reason or another eventually. This new sentiment towards the remaining clones was simply because Vader was a Sith Lord, but there was something deeper going on. Vader's relationship with the 501st Legion, and all of the clones for that matter, became very conflicted. Above all, Vader grew to distrust the clones completely, and dislike them. So, today, join us Acolytes as we open a holocron and explore the complicated feelings that Vader had towards the clone troopers. Before we begin, we'll go ahead and preface a few things though. While Vader rarely talks about his feelings towards the clones after the rise of the Empire, we have made connections based on conversations and observations to determine how Vader truly feels of the clones. Second, we will be pulling mainly from Legends continuity here, where the inhibitor chips do not exist. However, we may be retroactively fitting Vader's Legends feelings in canon, since it's very unclear whether or not he ever knew about the inhibitor chips, but that's a topic for another day. What we can say is that Darth Vader saw that the clones had proved their loyalty to the word of a single man. That man was not him, it was Palpatine. 3 years of fighting and dying alongside their Jedi commanders had apparently meant nothing whenever their Lord issued those infamous 2 words. Although Vader himself was the one who led the charge during Operation Nightfall, Vader actively watched and felt through the Force as every Jedi fell to blasters, the blasters of their most trusted allies. If they were able to easily turn on the Jedi, the thought entered Vader's mind that they would also do so to him on a whim. This would be explored in a brief conversation in a comic between Vader and a clone trooper by the name of Commander Vil. This took place very shortly after the Empire's rise, and the clone troopers were still in their Phase 2 gear. At this point, Vader had a lot on his mind, and was discovering that Palpatine was making moves to overthrow him already. His distrust for his master was reaching new heights, and he pondered on how soon Palpatine may decide to turn against him. During the mission, Commander Vil was giving Vader mission updates when the Dark Lord abruptly stopped him by saying that he had a question for the clone, and that he wanted the clone to answer honestly. Vader's question was this: the Emperor foresaw that the Jedi would attempt to thwart his move to consolidate the Republic into the Galactic Empire. He prepared you. He prepared all of the clones by indoctrinating you with instructions for Order 66. Have you ever been indoctrinated with a similar order to attack me if the Emperor ever so commands? Caught off guard and stumbling over his words, the clone simply replies that if such a command ever did exist, he would not have the authority to divulge any of the information about it, even to Vader. This told Vader everything that he needed. In that moment, he lifted Commander Vil up by the throat and threw him off of a nearby cliff, knowing that his questions would have undoubtedly been reported back to Palpatine. Vader was actually correct in his assumption, as there was in fact a secret contingency order to take Vader out on the Emperor's word, Order 151. However, we have a theory about this order. I don't entirely believe that Order 151 was entirely for Vader as we know him now, but rather for Operation Nightfall Vader. We say this because the Empire was quickly moving on from the clones to natural recruits, and we've talked before about how Sidious feared a clone trooper uprising and wanted to indoctrinate soldiers entirely loyal to the Empire. This means that he didn't plan on keeping the clones around very much longer after Order 66, especially for Order 151 to ever be used effectively. This leads us to believe that 151 was an order addendum in the event that Darkside Anakin, leading the clone charge, decided that he wanted to second guess his choice to be a Sith and betray Palpatine. Order 151 was a personal Order 66 for Anakin. It's important to remember that Anakin was left out of Order 66 guidelines, which means a special order would have needed to be created for him in the event that he backtracked on his decision to turn against the Jedi. Because of this, we believe that by the time Vader was within his suit, Order 151 was essentially obsolete. But that tangent aside, Vader was more eager to have fresh recruits rather than the clones among his ranks, as Vader needed loyalty, and more than that, predictability more than anything else. The complications arise when the new recruits were only a fraction as effective as the clones that Vader had trained by. Vader, having been used to the genetically engineered super soldiers with the Kaminoan training process and snappy response to orders, would be met with a very different experience when it came to the stormtroopers. Because they were regular recruits without genetic modifications, top-tier battle training, or war experience, the new Stormtrooper Corps weren't anything near as effective despite being considered elite soldiers. Despite this, Vader was willing to settle for less quality if it meant that he didn't have to constantly look over his shoulder. But make no mistake, Vader still preferred fighting alongside the clone troopers in the heat of battle. They were simply more effective, and were victims same as him. Therefore, the clones and Vader could relate to one another. But still, Vader had to deal with the bottom line. He could not trust the clones, and they only represented the ever-expanding reach of Palpatine. As for the clones that remained, Vader didn't really mind them as long as they kept their distance. One clone trooper would actually rise through the ranks of the Empire and became Palpatine's royal guard. Vader saw his face a few times during the Ryloth uprising, and at that point, he had become mostly indifferent to the clone troopers. He didn't question that they were loyal to Palpatine above all else. In fact, when he saw the familiar face of Palpatine's Red Guard, the same face of Jango Fett that Anakin had seen a million times, Vader pleasantly imagined the other clones would have nicknamed him Ink because of all of his tattoos. Vader remembered the camaraderie that permeated through clone culture, and how he was lucky to be a part of it. But all of this was destroyed in Vader's eyes because the clones were willing to switch allegiances at the drop of a hat based on a few words. But that, my friends, is the complicated feelings that Vader had for his former, most trusted soldiers. Tell us, did you ever wonder if Vader preferred having clones within his ranks? For the longest time, we were sure that he did, because of their efficiency and their battle-hardened skills. However, it seems that the Dark Lord was willing to settle for far less than perfect recruits because of the post-war experience. Palpatine's fingers stretched into every facet in the Empire, and therefore into Vader's very life. A terrible thing when Vader couldn't trust his master as far as he could throw him. But let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, my friends. And as always, may the Force be with you.